in the quiet neighborhoods of Queens, New York, long before he became a famous businessman or a political figure, Donald John Trump lived a life that looked ordinary on the outside but was filled with ambition on the inside. He was born in 1946, the fourth child in a busy household where business conversations often filled the dinner table. His father, Fred Trump, was a successful real estate developer, and young Donald grew up watching him build houses, manage workers, and solve problems with confidence. Even as a child, Donald was energetic and competitive. Teachers at the local school quickly noticed that he loved to take the lead in class activities. If there was a group project, Donald wanted to be the one making decisions. If there was a game, he wanted to win it. His strong personality sometimes caused trouble. His parents often said he had too much energy for one room. By the time he reached his early teens, that energy became harder to control. Donald sometimes argued with teachers, pushed boundaries, and tested limits. His parents realized he needed stronger discipline, so they made a big decision. They sent him to the New York Military Academy, a strict boarding school. For many kids, it would have been a punishment, but for Donald, it became a challenge, and he liked challenges. Life at the academy was very different from life at home. Every morning began with early wake-up calls, uniform inspections, and physical training. At first, Donald struggled with the rules, but over time he learned something important: discipline could make him better. He began to excel in sports, especially baseball, and he gained respect for his leadership on the field. He wasn't the strongest or the fastest, but he was determined and confident, and that made people follow him. Those school years shaped him. He started to understand that success wasn't just about being bold, it was also about being consistent, focused, and unafraid to stand out. By the time he graduated, Donald Trump wasn't just a young man from Queens anymore. He was someone who felt ready for something bigger, something beyond the academy walls. He didn't know it yet, but he was stepping onto a path that would eventually lead him to New York skyscrapers, television screens across America, and even the White House. But that journey was still far away. For now, he was just Donald, a young man with ambition in his eyes, walking through the streets of New York, dreaming of the world he wanted to build. After graduating from the New York Military Academy, Donald Trump returned to New York City, but he wasn't the same boy who had left. The discipline he learned gave him confidence, and the leadership skills he developed made him feel ready for bigger responsibilities. He decided to step into the world he had watched his father build for decades, real estate. Donald first attended Fordham University, but after 2 years, he transferred to the prestigious Wharton School of Finance at the University of Pennsylvania. Wharton was known for shaping successful business leaders, and Donald wanted to be one of them. He spent his time learning about economics, finance, investment, and property development. But more importantly, he learned how to think big. While many students focused on small projects or safe careers, Donald dreamed differently. He imagined skyscrapers, hotels, and massive buildings with his name shining on top. He had a vision of creating something bold and unforgettable in New York City. During summer breaks, he worked in his father's company, the Trump Management Corporation. He visited construction sites, walked through noisy hallways filled with workers and tools, and watched how buildings came to life from empty land. He observed how his father negotiated deals, managed budgets, and handled difficult situations with calm confidence. But Donald didn't just watch, he asked questions, took notes, and studied every detail. He wanted to understand every part of the business, from the concrete that formed the foundation to the strategies that attracted tenants. By the time he graduated from Wharton, he wasn't just Fred Trump's son anymore. He was a young businessman with big goals, bigger ideas, and a desire to do something different from what his father had done. While his father focused on middle-class housing in Brooklyn and Queens, Donald wanted to move into Manhattan, the heart of New York, a place known for luxury, power, and towering glass buildings. Many people thought he was dreaming too big. Manhattan was expensive, competitive, and filled with experienced developers. But Donald felt something inside him, a belief that he could succeed where others hesitated. With determination and a bold vision, he stepped into Manhattan for the first time as a developer, ready to take on the biggest city in America. He didn't know it yet, but this step would change everything, not just for him, but for New York City itself. Manhattan in the 1970s was a city of contrast. Parts of it were bright, glamorous, and alive with opportunity. But other areas were struggling, filled with old buildings, broken streets, and businesses that had given up. Most real estate developers avoided these troubled spots. They preferred safer areas with guaranteed profits. Donald Trump thought differently. When he walked through Manhattan for business the first time, he didn't see abandoned buildings, he saw potential. He didn't see risk, he saw opportunity. The tall city lights, the crowded sidewalks, the sound of taxis and trains, all of it made him feel energized. He wanted to leave his mark on Manhattan's skyline, and he believed he could point one location changed everything: the old Commodore Hotel, next to Grand Central Terminal. The hotel was huge, but it was failing. Most people thought it was impossible to save. But Donald saw something others didn't. He imagined turning the forgotten building into a modern, shining landmark. To make this dream real, Donald did something bold. He negotiated one of the most complex deals New York had ever seen for a young developer. He met with city officials, bankers, and business leaders. Many were surprised by his confidence. He was young, too young, some said, but he spoke with certainty and passion. His energy made people listen. Eventually, he succeeded. With the help of the city and a partnership with the Hyatt Corporation, Donald took control of the hotel. Then came the hard part, rebuilding it. Construction crews filled the halls. Walls were torn down. New designs replaced old structures. Day and night, Donald visited the site, watching every detail, making decisions quickly, and pushing the project forward. He wanted everything perfect. When it finally opened, the building was transformed into the Grand Hyatt Hotel, a sparkling symbol of success. New Yorkers were shocked. The young developer from Queens had done what many said couldn't be done. The Grand Hyatt didn't just revive a hotel. It launched Donald Trump into the center of New York's business world. His name started to appear in newspapers. Reporters wanted interviews. People began to talk about the bold new developer with the big ideas, and Donald didn't stop to celebrate for long. As he stood in front of the Grand Hyatt, watching taxis pull in and guests walk through the glass doors, another vision appeared in his mind: something taller, something grander, something that would become one of the most famous buildings in America, Trump Tower. But that part of the story was still just beginning. After the success of the Grand Hyatt Hotel, Donald Trump felt a new level of confidence. His name was finally being recognized in New York City, but he wanted more than recognition. He wanted a landmark, a masterpiece, something that would represent his bold vision. That idea soon became one of the most iconic projects of his life: Trump Tower, located on Fifth Avenue, one of the most expensive and famous streets in the world. The future site of Trump Tower was once an old department store. Most developers didn't think it was the right place for a luxury skyscraper. The building was too old, the cost too high, and the challenge too big. But Donald Trump saw it differently. He imagined a tall, shimmering tower made of dark glass, standing proudly in the heart of Manhattan. He imagined a waterfall in the lobby, shining marble floors, gold accents, and luxury shops that attracted people from all around the world. Before he could build it, he needed approval, financing, and the trust of investors. Once again, he used his confidence and determination to convince people that his vision would work. His presentations were bold, his ideas detailed, and his energy contagious. After months of planning and negotiating, construction began. The work site became a daily part of Donald's life. He visited often, wearing a suit while walking among construction workers, inspecting every corner. He wanted the tower to be more than just a building. He wanted it to reflect his style, his ambition, and his personality. Piece by piece, floor by floor, Trump Tower began to rise. The black glass walls reflected the city lights, giving the building a sleek and modern look. As it grew taller, New Yorkers began to notice. Some admired it, some questioned it, but everyone was curious. When Trump Tower opened in 1983, it became an instant sensation. Crowds filled the lobby, amazed by the indoor waterfall, the luxury shops, and the glittering gold details. The building became a symbol of wealth, ambition, and New York style. For Donald Trump, this wasn't just a project, it was proof that he could turn big dreams into real structures. His name wasn't only on the building, it was now part of the city's identity. Trump Tower made him a national figure. Magazines wrote about him. Television shows invited him. People wanted to know more about the man behind the tower, and as Donald enjoyed this new level of fame, he began thinking about expanding beyond New York, into casinos, airlines, sports teams, and even entertainment. The next chapter of his life would be larger, louder, and filled with both triumphs and challenges. As Trump Tower continued to draw visitors from around the world, Donald Trump's confidence reached new heights. He felt that New York City was no longer big enough for all of his ideas. He wanted to expand his brand, not just upward into skyscrapers, but outward into new industries where excitement, glamour, and risk lived side by side. One of the first places he turned his attention to was Atlantic City, a coastal New Jersey town known for casinos, nightlife, and tourism. The city was in a period of rapid growth, and Donald saw an opportunity to build something spectacular. He wanted a casino so grand and luxurious that it would instantly become the heart of Atlantic City. In the mid-1980s, he opened the Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino, a glittering building filled with bright lights, table games, and thousands of guests. Visitors arrived from across the East Coast, eager to see what the young New York developer had created. The casino's success pushed Donald to do more. Soon, he added the Trump Castle, a second casino that reflected his signature style, bold, extravagant, and unforgettable. But Donald Trump's most ambitious Atlantic City project was still ahead. He acquired a nearly finished casino, improved its design, and transformed it into one of the largest casinos in the world. In 1990, he opened the Trump Taj Mahal, a massive structure decorated with white domes, golden accents, and luxurious details. It was advertised as the eighth wonder of the world, and for a time, it lived up to the name. Success in Atlantic City brought Donald even more attention. His business style, confident, daring, and dramatic, made him a household name. Reporters wanted stories about him, television shows invited him for interviews, and magazines featured him on their covers. But Donald didn't stop at casinos. He explored other industries, too. He purchased a stake in a professional football team, the New Jersey Generals, hoping to turn the team into a major competitor. He launched an airline called Trump Shuttle, offering stylish flights along the East Coast. He even bought the well-known Plaza Hotel in Manhattan, adding another historic landmark to his growing collection. To the public, Donald Trump looked unstoppable, a man who turned everything he touched into something bigger, louder, and more attention-grabbing. But behind the scenes, his rapid expansion was creating pressure. Large loans, rising costs, and unpredictable markets were beginning to test his empire. His story was entering a new phase, a phase filled not just with big victories, but with some of the biggest challenges of his career. By the early 1990s, Donald Trump's name was everywhere, on hotels, casinos, books, airplanes, and even sports teams. His life looked glamorous from the outside, but inside his business empire, the pressure was building. He had taken on huge projects, borrowed large amounts of money, and expanded faster than almost anyone in the business world. Then, something happened that Donald could not control. The U.S. economy slowed down. Interest rates rose, banks became stricter, and the real estate market weakened. Suddenly, many of his investments were not making enough money to cover their costs. The casinos in Atlantic City faced heavy competition. The airline struggled. Even some of his New York properties were affected. It was one of the biggest challenges of his life. For the first time, newspapers wrote that Donald Trump might be in serious financial trouble. Critics said he had grown too fast. Some predicted that his business career was over. But Donald had something many people overlooked: his resilience. Instead of giving up, he began negotiating. He met with banks, lenders, and investors, sometimes late into the night. He argued, explained, persuaded, and searched for solutions. He convinced many of them that if they supported him through the crisis, he could rebuild stronger than before. These negotiations weren't easy. They required patience, discipline, and a willingness to make tough decisions. Donald sold some properties, reorganized parts of his company, and focused on saving the projects that mattered most. Slowly, the situation began to stabilize. By the mid-1990s, while some of his businesses had suffered losses, Donald Trump had avoided complete collapse, something many thought was impossible. This period taught him a powerful lesson: success isn't just about winning, it's also about surviving when everything seems to fall apart. As the economy improved, Donald began rebuilding his image and his empire. He wrote books about business and life, sharing the lessons he had learned. His most famous book, The Art of the Deal, became widely known, further establishing his reputation as a bold and confident businessman. But his comeback wasn't just in books. Donald returned to property development with new energy. He renovated buildings, launched new projects, and strengthened the Trump brand. Once again, his name appeared in the news, this time as a comeback story, but the biggest change in his public image was still ahead. Television producers approached him with an idea that would bring him into millions of American homes and make him a global celebrity. A reality show. A show about business. A show where he would sit at the head of a boardroom table and make tough decisions. That show would become The Apprentice, and it would take Donald Trump's fame to a level he had never experienced before. As the 1990s came to an end, Donald Trump was rebuilding his image and strengthening his business empire piece by piece. But in the early 2000s, something unexpected happened, something that would transform him from a well-known businessman into a global celebrity. Television producers invited him to star in a new reality show. The idea was simple but unique. A group of ambitious contestants would compete in business challenges, and Donald Trump, sitting at the head of a large boardroom table, would judge their performance. Each week, one contestant would be eliminated with a now-famous phrase, "You're fired." In 2004, The Apprentice premiered on national television, and it quickly became a massive hit. Millions of Americans tuned in every week to watch the show. Viewers loved the dramatic challenges, the intense boardroom scenes, and Trump's confident, direct style. His business decisions were bold, sometimes surprising, and always entertaining. The show didn't just entertain people, it shaped Donald Trump's public image. He became known as the tough, successful businessman who demanded excellence. His catchphrases, his suits, and his unmistakable hairstyle became part of American pop culture. People who had never visited New York or stayed in one of his hotels now knew his name and recognized his voice. The success of The Apprentice led to more seasons, spin-offs, and even celebrity editions of the show. Contestants from all over the country dreamed of getting a job in the Trump organization, and the show's popularity boosted Donald's brand even further. His hotels, golf courses, and real estate projects gained attention from viewers around the world. With television fame came new opportunities. Donald appeared on talk shows, news programs, and entertainment events. He gave speeches, wrote more books, and became a constant presence in American media. But something else was happening too. The show gave him a direct connection to millions of Americans, people who admired his confidence, his business experience, and his outspoken personality. Over time, he began sharing more of his political opinions publicly. Some people agreed with him. Others strongly disagreed. But almost everyone listened. Slowly, a new idea started to form in Donald Trump's mind, an idea much bigger than a hotel, a casino, or a television show. It wasn't about business or entertainment. It was about leadership. It was about America. It was an idea that would surprise the world and change the course of his life forever. The idea of running for president of the United States. By the early 2010s, Donald Trump had built a unique place in American culture. He wasn't just a businessman anymore. He wasn't just a television star. He had become a public figure with a powerful voice, someone millions of people recognized and reacted to. Whether people admired him or disagreed with him, almost everyone had an opinion about him. During interviews, speeches, and public events, Donald began sharing more of his thoughts about America's economy, immigration, foreign policy, and the direction the country was heading. His comments were often bold, direct, and sometimes controversial. News channels debated them every day, and social media buzzed with reactions. For years, people had joked or wondered whether he would run for president. He had even considered it in the past but never fully committed. But in 2015, something felt different. The country was facing deep political tensions, and many Americans felt frustrated with traditional politicians. Donald saw an opportunity, a moment where his outsider status and business background might connect with voters. On a bright June morning, Donald Trump walked into the lobby of Trump Tower, surrounded by cameras, reporters, and a crowd of supporters. Gold escalators glowed in the background, and the atmosphere felt electric. People sensed something important was about to happen. Standing behind a podium with American flags beside him, he made a historic announcement: "I am officially running for President of the United States." The moment instantly became world news. Some people were excited. Others laughed or criticized the idea. News channels discussed the announcement non-stop. Many politicians and experts said he had no chance, that it was a publicity stunt, a television-style moment that wouldn't last, but Donald Trump didn't back down. He launched a full campaign across the country. He held massive rallies, speaking to thousands of people in stadiums and arenas. His speeches were energetic, emotional, and different from typical political speeches. He spoke in simple, direct language, and many people said he sounded like someone who understood their frustrations. He promised to bring back jobs, strengthen borders, renegotiate trade deals, and put America first. His campaign slogans and messages spread quickly. Supporters loved his boldness, critics challenged his approach. The country became divided, and the 2016 election turned into one of the most intense political battles in modern history. But something unexpected happened. The more Donald campaigned, the stronger his support grew. He defeated more than a dozen experienced politicians in the Republican primaries, surprising experts and commentators. His rallies continued to grow in size, and his confidence grew with them. By the end of 2016, the world watched as Donald Trump stood on a stage surrounded by cheering supporters, waiting for the election results that would shock political analysts across the globe. He was on the edge of the biggest turning point in his life. The night of the 2016 U.S. presidential election will forever be remembered as one of the most surprising moments in American political history. Polls, experts, and commentators had predicted many different outcomes, but very few expected Donald Trump to win. Across the world, televisions glowed late into the night as people waited for the final results. Inside the Trump campaign headquarters in New York City, the atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Donald Trump watched the states turn red on the electoral map. Florida, Ohio, North Carolina, one by one, key states moved in his favor. As the night went on, the impossible began to look possible. Just after midnight, major news networks made the announcement Donald J. Trump had won the election and would become the 45th President of the United States. Supporters cheered, cried, and waved American flags. In the ballroom of a New York hotel, Donald Trump walked on stage, surrounded by his family, as thousands of people applauded. The journey that began in Trump Tower, the bold announcement, the rallies, the debates, the controversies, had led to this moment. His victory speech was calm and measured. He thanked his supporters, spoke about uniting the country, and promised to work hard for all Americans. For a man who had spent decades building skyscrapers, casinos, and a powerful brand, this achievement was unlike anything he had done before. Becoming president wasn't just a new chapter, it was a completely new world. On January 20, 2017, Donald Trump placed his hand on the Bible and took the oath of office on the steps of the U.S. Capitol. The ceremony was filled with tradition, flags, music, and thousands of spectators. As he looked out across Washington, D.C., he felt the weight of responsibility settle onto his shoulders. The next 4 years were some of the most intense and debated years in American politics. Donald Trump made major changes in areas like trade, taxes, foreign policy, and immigration. He had strong supporters who believed he was bringing a new direction to the country, and strong critics who disagreed with his approach. He held rallies across the nation, spoke directly to the public through television and social media, and remained one of the most talked about figures in the world. Every decision, every speech, and every action drew attention, sometimes praise, sometimes criticism, always headlines. His presidency faced major challenges too: international tensions, national debates, and finally, the global pandemic that began in 2020. The country was divided, emotional, and overwhelmed by change. As the 2020 election approached, America prepared for another hugely important moment. Donald Trump once again stepped onto the campaign trail, ready to fight for a second term. Rallies filled with thousands of supporters stretched across the country, just as they had 4 years earlier. But the results of the 2020 election would take his story into another dramatic chapter, a chapter that would shape not only his future, but the future of American politics. The 2020 election was one of the most intense and closely watched elections in American history. The country was dealing with a global pandemic, economic challenges, and deep political divisions. Millions of Americans voted early or by mail, and the counting process stretched longer than usual. When the results were announced, Donald Trump did not win a second term. The outcome shocked many of his supporters and became the center of national debate. As the country processed the result, Donald faced one of the most difficult moments of his public life, stepping away from the presidency after 4 dramatic and historic years. Yet, even after leaving the White House in January 2021, Donald Trump remained a powerful and influential figure. Most former presidents step quietly away from public life, but Donald chose a different path. He continued to hold rallies, give speeches, and speak directly to millions of supporters who believed in him and his message. Throughout this period, he faced legal challenges, investigations, and ongoing political battles. His critics and supporters continued to disagree sharply about his legacy. But one thing was clear: his influence on American politics had not disappeared. If anything, it had grown stronger. Many people wondered what his next chapter would be. Would he return to business? Would he retire quietly? Or would he step back into the political arena again? In the years that followed, Donald Trump remained active. His presence in public events, interviews, and political gatherings kept him at the center of national conversation. He endorsed candidates, shaped debates, and continued to speak to large crowds. For millions of Americans, he symbolized boldness, confidence, and a break from traditional politics. For others, he remained a highly controversial figure. Then came another major decision. Donald Trump announced that he would run for the presidency once again, aiming to return to the White House and continue the agenda he had started. The announcement reignited nationwide attention. Supporters cheered. Critics reacted sharply. Newsrooms filled with discussions, analyses, and predictions about what his return might mean for the country. His new campaign echoed his familiar themes: jobs, security, borders, national pride, and America first. Once again, he traveled across the country, drawing large crowds and delivering energetic speeches. The political landscape shifted around him, proving that his presence still had the power to shape the future of American elections. No matter how people view him, one fact is undeniable: that Donald Trump's life story is one of ambition, risk, controversy, and enormous impact. From a young boy in Queens, to a real estate developer in Manhattan, to a television star, to the 45th President of the United States, and then, once again, to a major force in American politics, his journey remains one of the most remarkable and talked about stories in modern American history, and his influence, like his towers, continues to stand tall.